Hi, I'm Mike Harrell, and today I'm going to do get a little interview with Cynthia Vargas, and she's out in the Big Island of Hawaii, and it's a life for many contacts, and does art of extraterrestrials. Plus, she has lifetime memories of being an extraterrestrial in another lifetime. So, welcome, Cynthia. Why don't you start at the beginning and tell your story?
Okay, thank you. Well, to start from childhood, I basically had a lifetime of unusual experiences and feeling like I was in touch with spirits my whole life. One of my earliest memories was leaving my body when I was in a stroller because my mother was afraid. I think I was, definitely an empathic child. Her fear somehow caused me to feel so much fear that I left my body. And I remember this, and then there was another different incident. I'll just briefly go through some of my experiences, where I remember being about 4 years old and being in the car and my mother telling me to get down and don't look. And there was a really bright light. And I don't remember what happened. She told me that was a dream, but it always did stick in my mind as something may have happened. As a child, I saw many shadow figures and spirits. I felt like I was aware of ghosts and spirits and I could talk to them. I used to see a shaking when I would try to sleep, and I had a very hard time sleeping, and someone would physically come and touch my arms and comfort me so that I could fall asleep. And I remember asking my mother who that was, and she said that she thought it was either my grandmother or the Virgin Mary, and I didn't believe that it was either of those two. But it was something that was very real, and that it was just very comforting. Then going forward, into my teenage years, which were really awful, I ended up running away from home and everything. I met my kid's father. He was like a follower of the Grateful Dead and a rainbow gathering person, and we traveled a lot. And so at some point, there was a number of different things. The two of us had 2 days missing time, absolutely no idea what happened. We were camping outside of Tucson, and we used to walk into town every Wednesday, and we walked into town and it was Friday, and our friends had told us you guys weren't anywhere around. They had walked out to see us and we were nowhere, and neither of us had any kind of understanding about what happened with that, and I still don't completely know. But it was for whatever reason, we didn't want to talk about it. It was terrifying or too much to deal with or something. Which is odd, I think, when I always wanted to find out about things, and for some reason I didn't want to even talk about that.
So that was like a movie. You guys get up normally and go walk into town, and you realize
it's 2 days later, yeah.
And the feedback you're getting is, wow, that's pretty impressive. Because people talk about missing an hour, 2 hours, or 6 hours, but two days is astounding.
Yeah. Yeah, and during that time, I had also had something, my foot, there was a lot of cactus and things. I thought maybe I had somehow stepped on a thorn had gotten in the side of my toe, and I ended up having it going to the emergency room. And they took out something that was like a small, tiny little metal thing. Two doctors came in and were kind of laughing and put it in a petri dish and told me that it was the eye end of a leather needle. But that doesn't look like an eye end of a leather needle that I've ever seen. So I always thought maybe that might have been an implant of some sort. That was all in the same time period. And then at the same time, my daughter, I had become pregnant with my daughter, Christy, right around that same time, who I believe she was a hybrid. She was diagnosed with a very, very rare medical condition. They noticed that her head was growing too large and the ends of her long bones, and it's a 1 in 22 million people has this. There's only like 4 people on the earth. They didn't know much about it. We went through extensive testing at Cedars-Sinai Hospital when I moved back to Los Angeles, and she just was a completely different kind of child. She used to organize her toys instead of play with them, and it was I don't think there was any way to look at Christy and not know that there was something very different about her. What's interesting is that her condition, the skull would grow too thick, and I actually saw something recently about the star child skull, and it's almost looked like the same thing, like the bone density is very different. There was also one time when Christy was completely gone. I have no idea where she was. This was in the daytime. My other daughter was there, and we ran around the block knocking on people's doors. It wasn't like her to just disappear like that. I'm sorry.
How old was she?
She was about 6 at that time. And then when I came home, I was panicked and everything, and I was going to call the police, and she was sleeping in the middle of the bedroom floor, which was odd. So I think she may have gone someplace. There were other visits as she was growing up. I talked about briefly before. I was trying to go to sleep, and I was in college that time, and I saw a very fast moving black shadow go across the room, and there was a chair next to where I was sleeping. I was lying in bed, and someone sat in the chair. And when I looked at this person, my first thought was, they look kind of like my daughter Christy. This is a small person with a thin body and a oversized large head. I was fascinated. I couldn't see through this being. It was like a black shadow mass. And when I would look at the eyes, there were like a projection would start to appear, kind of similar to the old Twilight Zone, that cone that moves around and turns, kind of like that, like a hypnotic wheel or something. I don't know what those things that they used to use, something like that. And I would see that every time, and then I felt this pressure on my chest every time the being would look at me, and I would see those eyes, and I would feel this pressure. And then I remember the being moved and put its hand over my chest, and that's all that I remember. And I know there's no way that I went to sleep. I was absolutely fascinated, but the memory stops there.
Oh, did you just pass out or go to sleep or just everything just stopped?
It just stops. Yeah. I don't think I went to sleep because I was absolutely fascinated by this being that was sitting in a chair next to me. And yeah, it was amazing. There was another time when and I know this is a small thing, but I actually heard someone else talk about this. I saw around the same time period what I was certain was the moon, but it was going in the wrong direction. That was another odd thing, all during this time. A short time after that, I moved, well, not a short time, so many years, I moved to Hawaii, and I had this experience at one point that for years I thought it was a near-death experience. I now believe that I was actually taken on board a vehicle, and I was aware at the time of being on board the vehicle. I thought that I had died, and I was very upset about this. And there were other humans, there were lots of people. Most of them seemed like they were in a daze. but there was two women that talked to me and kind of helped me calm down. Everybody was wearing like these white kind of like gown things, and those people were just like they weren't really there. They were kind of unconscious, but I was very aware and very conscious that I was in some sort of vehicle. And I asked the woman, what is happening? Where are we going? And she said, we're going home. So I don't know why at the time I processed that as a near-death experience that but we're in a vehicle going to heaven or wherever it is that we're going at that time, in my understanding. At some point, I was taken to like a table, and there was someone sitting there that I know these were different sort of entities that were using images from my mind to project over themselves so that I wouldn't see them. I saw instead like a cartoon face of, it was like from a kid's Bible story of St. Peter for some reason, this smiling cartoon St. Peter that didn't move. It was like a cardboard stand up over the top of this person that was just, I was fine with it. It was comforting. Yeah, I felt comforted with this individual, the energy that was there and everything, but I was absolutely terrified. And I'm looking at this cartoon face that doesn't move at the same time. When they opened my hand and did something to one of my hands, and I could see the fat cells and everything inside my left hand. And it was like, and I still was looking at this cartoon picture. There was another point in that same, it was like I was going in and out of consciousness at different times. And then there was another part of that same experience where I feel like I was maybe returning, being taken back. And I can remember feeling like I was traveling through space. There was a huge white light over me, and there was something I can't really even explain. There were like what looks like egg shapes they were light, but they weren't part of the same reality of like the sky and everything. It was like looking through holes that were light, and they were moving towards the really large light above. And there was an entity with me that was, again, I think absolutely was masked from something from my own memory. And what I was seeing was I'm certain I've seen this before, a Christmas card of a Hawaiian angel that had the same, like, it was like, again, looking like at a cardboard stand-up that didn't move the whole time, but I could feel very comforted by this person. And then I was in my room, and I processed that for years as a near-death experience. And then there was another experience that I had similar.
Can we just stay with this experience? Can we stay with this experience for a minute? Do you recall how big the craft was, or?
It seemed very, very large. I don't remember it. The room that I was in was very large, and that was all that I could see. I couldn't see beyond that, but it felt very large. And when I was leaving, the light that I saw, everything was very large.
And you said you saw other human-looking people there,
Mm-hmm.
but they were dressed in robes, obviously kind of part of the crew or something.
No, I think they were taken like me. They were kind of out of it. Like they were, the only people, I didn't see anyone that was a part of the crew that wasn't masked by some kind of image of some sort. I believe the humans that I saw they were there for, I think this may have been a medical craft or something like that. I'm not really sure, but I think they were there for the same reasons as I was.
And what year was this?
This would have been probably the early 90s, 91, 92.
So that's not that far.
Yeah.
Yeah. And wow, well, this whole thing about screen memories and implanted memories is just very common when people go on craft, and they have the ability to do that. I think mostly for your comfort and their safety.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It was very much more comforting, I'm sure, to see, a friendly image.
I was on a craft one time. I've only been on a craft maybe 3 or 4 times, and there are little short snippets of some of them. But one, I was on the craft for hours, but I could only kind of have this kind of tunnel vision. I knew I was in some kind of an auditorium, and I was the speaker, and I was like giving them a, what do you call it, a report of whatever it was I was supposed to report on down here. But when I looked at the people who were listening to me, they were like out of focus. They're like fuzzy, you know what I mean? I could kind of see their body shapes, and they look kind of human, more or less human-like, but their whole face was kind of
covered, fuzzy.
There was a shape of a head, but it was just like just a glow kind of a, you know, there was nothing there. It was blank, just with the shape of the head. So that, and I've heard a lot of stories about that you know, that they call them screen memories or screen.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing.
It is amazing, yeah. It's amazing. The stories are all similar, you know, about going to a table and, you know, good stuff.
Yeah.
What happened next?
Well, I have another memory of a similar thing of waking up and finding myself on a craft. This time, this was maybe only about 12 years ago. Well, yeah, maybe about 10 years ago, actually. It was much different. It's just I woke up and I remember being absolutely fascinated by this black and white thing that was hanging on a wall. And it was almost like a feeling of coming out of anesthesia, the way I felt. It was, I was kind of trying to focus, and I slowly realized that I had no idea where I was. But I was really fascinated by this thing on the wall. And then at some point, 3 small beings walked in, and I can only describe them as being very reflective. They didn't look like biological beings at all. I don't think the eyes were huge, the whole face, everything they were wearing, if they were wearing anything, it was all reflecting light. And it was just, I remember the words came out of my mouth, which was, this is too weird, this cannot be blank happening. and then I thought I was having a vivid dream. What I remember at some point, I don't remember anything else. I remember passing out, and then I was in the wrong room. I was in the living room on the ball. I like curled up in a ball on the floor, and I felt like I had just like fallen a tremendous distance really fast. And all I could see, I couldn't see. All I could see was like light blue. Everything was blue, and I was yelling. And my ex-husband at the time came out because I was, you know, he thought I was sleepwalking or something. But I was just curled in a ball yelling over and over, what's happening, what's happening, what's happening. And it took me a while, and then I could slowly see again. And that was one of those things that I also chalked up to, is that must have been a really strange, vivid dream with a sleepwalking episode, which I've never sleepwalked. So there was that experience as well.
No, that's a pretty compelling one, because in your you know, they take us up or out or wherever they go, and then they bring us back. And some people are just gone the whole time. There's a blocked in memory. But some people actually remember going up, what happens, and coming back down. And if that whole episode is alarming, in other words, you know, it's new and it's different and it's shocking, then that's kind of traumatic. You know, it's like your body's going to react to it.
Yeah.
Whether you're cool, calm, and collected in your head, your body's going to react to like being taken and put back or whatever the drama was. It's a visceral thing.
Yeah, very much. That was frightening. A short time after that, I started getting into like more like really exploring mediumship and wanting to explore, you know, a lot of things that I was seeing, orbs and things like that. I'd always been aware of spirits. And I had this conversation with my partner, and for some reason we were talking about my daughter Christy, and he said, you know, to me, have you ever thought that your daughter Christy might have been a hybrid? And I said, absolutely. But for some reason that time it clicked, and I could see that all these other events and everything could quite possibly be is this, you know, At the time, am I an alien abductee? Because that's all I understood at that time. And so I started researching into this, and I made a decision that I was going to try to, if these beings are telepathic, I should be able to talk to them, excuse me, and find out, ask a question. Are you involved in my life? Is this what's been going on? All these strange events and things. And so I did a focused attempt at doing that, and I felt immediately almost that I got some kind of a response. It was like, your response will be granted, or your question. I'm at that point, I'm thinking that, well, maybe I'll see a UFO or something, and that would be the big confirmation. I wasn't expecting anything more than that. And what happened was absolutely amazing. I was in my kitchen and I was preparing squid for some reason, and I remember this very clearly. It was like I had ear ringing and many other symptoms that were leading me to kind of start reading different spiritual things about awakening and all of this. Anyway, I'm cleaning this squid, and I feel like my head starts humming almost. The ear ringing is going really strong, and the only way I can describe it is having a sensation of like those old-fashioned hair dryers or something that covers your whole head, or something that covered my entire head, and a very, very, very clear voice, clearer than I've ever heard before, started speaking to me. And it was basically that told me, I remember hearing like the words, "Welcome home, star child," and that my daughter was a hybrid, and that yes, and that now I'm ready to begin learning more things. And this was just the beginning part. And so from that point on, things became different. Well, what was interesting about that experience was I was really shaken up. I had tears flowing down my face. It was absolutely beautiful. I felt a connection. I felt that, this is my family. I knew this instantly. An odd thing that happened that time was, for some reason, there was a glass jar that shattered after that whole experience, and it kind of knocked me out. It's like back home. Yeah.
That's compelling.
Yeah, it was amazing. I couldn't tell my partner. It took me 3 weeks to tell my partner what had just happened, and because I didn't want to sound like a crazy person, but it was amazing.
You're segueing into another part of your life, and that I wanted to say as part of a pattern is that we live a normal life, and then these things are kind of not really center, but then things happen, and we begin to open up, and then intuitive connections to Earth, connections to the stars, these kind of things happen. It's so I think you're starting to move now in the part of your story where your transformation starts to manifest on Earth, and that comes in the form of intuitive painting and channeling and connecting to the spirit world, and feeling more love and connectedness. These are all symptoms of an actual ET contact or contact with non-human intelligent beings.
My entire concept of reality is different. Everything.
And your place in it.
Yeah, and the way that I believe about myself and everyone else, the way that I see others, everything is completely different.
Could you go into like how different is, like in terms of judgment, loving, whatever it is?
One of the things that happened after that was I felt like I had, for about a year, I had teachers that would, like teacher people that would come and talk to me and want me to work on different like meditational disciplines and different things. Sometimes I would get symbols and different understanding. But what eventually evolved from all of that is the understanding of that we're not, this physical form is really insignificant. We're all spirits, we're all the same, even whatever type of physical form, that everything's interconnected, absolutely everything. And we all have this divine within us. And it's all about, we create our reality. What I believe myself to be is what I become. And it's just really, really been completely transformational understanding that. It's something that's constantly in a process of unfolding as far as my understanding. But it's different. Everything's different.
Uh, I'm kind of blown away because like I knew you had these great stories, but this is like pretty rich. It's good stuff. Yeah, everything's different, and it has to do with like this that time when you cried and you just like, fully accepted it, and they felt it was time for you to have that, kind of more of a one-on-one is what I hear is going on, and you have starting to have
Yeah.
more like either psychic or visionary experience between you and your family. Now you're calling them family.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that. At that point, it is when I realized that I started remote viewing. A short time after it was like I was working with teachers, and then another voice came in, and this was a completely different type of an experience. This being was different. This funny and loud and very, very happy. I could feel this happy energy all the time from this person, and I believe this is my twin from another lifetime. And at some point, I realized that I could close my eyes and see a portal. And this is something that I had been doing since like when I was in my 20s, and it scared me because when I see this portal, it's like a moving, changing. The only way that I could describe it is as a portal. I've come to know this as a being also now, but in the beginning of the remote viewing, I realized that I could see what I call my twin, who I believe is currently in what people would understand as a reptile gray hybrid body, and who I believe actually lives on Earth. And I can see what this person does. Sometimes when they allow me, it's like I'm a couple of feet behind their head. I can see different things they're working on. I saw when I realized something really weird was going on is when I saw this being doing stretching exercises and picking things up on the floor and doing odd, weird little things like that. Yeah. It was like, this isn't what I'm trying to see. This isn't what I'm imagining. I think this may be what's happening in real time at times. And I've seen meetings and different devices and different things that they work on. It's absolutely amazing. Sometimes instead of allowing me to see, this being will cover and tell me that, I'm not ready to see this yet, or I want you to see something different, and an entirely different screen will start playing, and we'll have a different conversation about something that needs work or attention or something that I should understand. It's really amazing. I that to me is probably the I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's just amazing.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit earlier. That's pretty profound. And you don't know. You don't know where on planet Earth your this other being is, your supposed twin. Do you have?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, you do know roughly where he is. A she or a he?
I believe this is a male entity, or this is the energy that I get anyway.
But did you have a name for him, or is it just the feel?
Yeah,
the
I call him Ra.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very interesting because I just recently, through the internet, I came across, through a third party, a friend who contacted me and told me that someone else had met Ra and started telling me this story. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I'm sure he works with other people as a guide or helps other people. I've actually seen things like this. And he does counsel other people and help them. In remote viewing, I've seen this. But what was very interesting was this person started like confirming so many different things back and forth. And I guess they showed this other person one of my paintings, and they said, that is the being. That's, and the location and everything was the same. So I think that was just amazing. I can't believe the odds of that happening.
Well, this whole thing is mind blowing. So this interconnectedness between human beings and and these coincidences, and man, that stuff is all real, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but especially down to details. I mean, you know, intimate kind of only I know kind of stuff. Yeah. So where is this fellow Ra? You think he's above ground or below ground?
Below ground in New Mexico.
Yeah,
I
I got
believe
that
in the
feeling.
area of Los Alamos.
Yeah. Well, this for some reason this is all kind of uplifting, and obviously you feel like your soul or your spirit is had has just come from an incarnation of a similar being of that star family, whether it's the grays or the gray alien, gray reptile mix. That was your last lifetime, as far as you can remember, right?
Yeah.
Or several lifetimes, and then you came into a full human body. That's pretty. That's pretty astounding. And so you
Yeah.
truly are,
Yeah.
truly are, would be called a star seed.
I believe so.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how are your kids holding up under all this? Do you see? I mean, they must know now that you're having a fully conscious interaction with these non-human intelligent beings.
My oldest daughter passed away, the one who had the condition, right before she was 14. My youngest daughter we're still very much, we talk constantly, and yet she's not where I'm at, but she's supportive, and she encourages me. I believe there was one time when she actually called me on the phone, and she doesn't remember doing this. I believe she's had her own experiences. She just hasn't completely come into the awareness yet. But she called me on the phone and said, out of the blue, when she was about 13, I think I was abducted by aliens. And the interesting thing is that she doesn't remember. She said she had a dream that she called me about that. And no, you actually called me. But it's just another piece of the puzzle. I'm very thankful. My daughter's an artist too, and we have always had this wonderful close relationship. She's told me at times, Mom, I haven't had the same thing that you understand, because especially in the beginning, I was absolutely thrilled and blown away and wanted to tell anyone who would listen what was going on, which did not go very well most times, but that's so yeah, she's very supportive.
Yeah, and how old is she currently?
She would be 30. She's 30. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So I have a hard time remembering that, but 30.
yeah, so whether her task is to be fully assimilated live a normal person's life, or to be awakened when she's 40s, 50s, or 60s, because there's that's going on too.
Yeah.
Some people are kind of awake in their 20s and they realize this whole thing, or their whole life, and some people it's like in their 50s and 60s, that the whole veil is lifted.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's time for her to, there's more going on, because there's more going on Earth, that's for sure. There's a lot going on with everybody's life now. What a wonderful, wonderful story. And
Yeah.
the remote viewing thing, because you didn't have these abilities when you were a teenager, right?
No. I was always aware of spirits, and I believe that I saw, and at certain times I heard them. I many times I've been in empty places and heard my name called and that sort of thing. But as far as the viewing thing, I didn't have that as a teenager. That seemed to, at the same time with the portal, when this happened.
Is this a portal you see with your third eye inside?
Mm-hmm.
Because I have friends who see portals outside too. So.
I can see it outside too. If I look for it, I can see it outside sometimes, but it's easier to see inside. Yeah. That was an amazing, I didn't know that others had this. I thought that when this first started happening, I had a horrible case of insomnia. I couldn't sleep. It's like, what is this? I'd never heard of anything like this. This portal that moves and changes, and I've actually traveled down it many times. And
wow, what was that like? What was that like?
Well, it was pretty funny. I had a really weird experience doing that one time. The first time I went through the portal, and it was like I had come up the other side, and I was in a room that I could see, like a bunch of teenagers were having a seance or something. They were doing something in a circle, and they saw me, and they were terrified, and I was scared also. And it, I had no idea I'm in this room. It was like, kind of like funny to think about, but they were scared, and they saw me, and I saw them. And I haven't gone in that same place. I think it changes constantly. I've come to actually see the portal as a being, or I call her mother, and I see her sometimes. The portal looks almost like a huge dragon that's changing and moving, and sometimes I see a cord running through her. Sometimes I see her eyes. Always seems to be breathing. And I believe my understanding from what I've been taught from my contact is that this is a living being that is creation, all of matter. And that's has been a huge.
Well, let me back up there, because I have friends, several friends who've had experiences with dragons. Some people have had lifelong experiences with actual kind of dragon kind of figure, but this is not what you're talking about. You're talking about an energy being that
Not a non-physical
is in a form of a dragon, and they can kind of come in and out of focus there.
Yeah, I think that maybe I see her, or we see her that way because that's, my incarnational understanding from the past. Maybe others see the portals differently. It's very interesting.
So wait a minute, I still haven't in my head.
Sorry.
Are you calling the portal itself a living being?
I believe that this is yes, I call the portal
or part of a living being, something.
Part of a living being. Yes.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I like that. I like that part. So this being just like is able to just open up themselves and connect you to other places. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I call her the great mother. That understanding. She's matter and all of material, all of creation, what we don't understand. Yeah, and I've actually feel like I can communicate and have a relationship, even though it's not with words or anything, as far as I understand, with this being. But it's pretty amazing.
Profoundly amazing. So, and this kind of goes when we talk about non-human intelligent beings. This thing may not even be a being. You're talking about something that might just be a force of nature, or a consciousness location, and no being at all there. It's just not in the way that we think of it, is it?
Yeah. One of the interesting things that I've also learned is about various different types of beings, that not all beings are singular, as in solitary entities. Some function as collective beings, some function as many different forms. So that's always something that's very interesting. I believe that my family, in many sense, when I talk about this, my incarnational family, that they function as a collective being, but are individuals as well.
I can definitely see that. I mean, you're not talking about your human family. You're talking about your
yes,
that collective. Yeah, because I think there's a fundamental unity of all things, and part of the evolution of consciousness is to get to these unity states. And when you're in a unity state, you're connected to what they call the all one, so that everything is everything's connected, and all the beings that are on your level are all connected in this all one thing, even though you're an individual who's doing your task or and that's really hard for human beings to grok, because to be in a state where what everybody's thinking, everybody's kind of in agreement with you, or connected to you, and yet you're still able to be an individual.
One of the interesting things that I believe that for example, with Ra'a, this being that I talk about, is that I believe he can put his consciousness can actually be fully present in more than one situation at a time. So someone like this could actually operate several bodies or do several tasks with full attention and be in several different places at one time. I
Oh,
find
that's,
that.
I completely agree with that. And because I've experienced hints of that myself, where I've been other places and here, knowing that I was another place and here. And the other thing is that's since we're talking about these esoteric, not normal ways of being, the other thing that I've kind of come to the understanding is that we're mutable. We're born thinking that we're fixed. I am me, you are you, and so on.
Mhm.
We're actually mutable. In other words, other beings, when they come to us, they actually incarnate into us like a spirit possession in order to
Mhm.
do it. This is all invisible, but they come in, they do things with our energy, they teachings. This is actually it is the same. Their spirits coming in and connecting our spirits in a mutable way. In other words, they come into our being and then they leave our being. I've experienced this many times, and I think that's a lot of the phenomena that that uh, experiencers are having is of has that quality to it, where when you come in and you fully know another being is there, like it's a mothering, or it's a twin, or it's part of a collective. When you have that kind of knowing, it's because they are inside you at that point,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then they can withdraw. So that means that we are mutable, completely mutable to just to the beings that can actually control their essence and stuff. So they're still being in their body, and but they come in and possess your body for the moment. There's a connection made, and then they go back to their body.
Mhm.
You said you've done that too, where you've gone to see your twin. You're still in your physical body, but you've gone to see your twin in a remote viewing style.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
you've gone into seeing what he sees from behind him, but this also could be through him too. It's pretty amazing that we're not not stuck with our own skin like we think we are.
Yeah. It's amazing that like sometimes this is happening when I mean, it is most times I'm sitting down and eating breakfast or making something or doing something else, and these experiences are going on at times too. And I wonder sometimes how much else is going on, and the matter of bringing the awareness into the center and the present. This has become something that's another thing that is the teaching of this and the practice of this is very important to me. It's 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 very interesting. I wonder sometimes also if this is not more like the higher dimensional state, which where we don't necessarily have this physical form and everything might be happening simultaneously, but separated by whatever we can understand at the moment. I think this is one of the things that's come to me that is absolutely so fascinating is the idea that to the amount that I'm willing and able to bring my awareness into anything is that's what um, well that's what the experience is, or several different things can be layered on top of each other that are happening. It's hard to explain, but
Yeah,
very interesting.
this is not. We don't have words for this kind of stuff, like to cohabit a body, or to have shared visions. Like some being may be on a craft and sending you a vision of information, downloads, whatever it is. They're sending this thing to you, and then you're receiving it. That's like a shared vision, you know, a
It is.
center vision. But and this can be very complex. People get symphonies that way. They get artwork that way. They get mathematical equations. They get understanding
Yeah.
about how spaceships fly, or nature of the universe, or history of mankind, and they get this stuff through these shared shared consciousness is what it actually is. There's a unity kind of a thing going on there.
Well, one of the first things that came to me, and it was a very simple symbol, and I wasn't really, you know, maybe I should have mentioned this, but I wasn't someone that before all of this big epiphany and awakening and everything started happening, it wasn't something that I read about or anything, but this symbol was just a simple barbell symbol that a very short time after, I found there's so many different crop circles that have this motif and this design, and it's to me it what that really, that was something that was very precious. And in the beginning I painted it into all of my paintings. Was this, it implies this link, this connection, this like cohabitation, that understanding, living together. I feel like even though I'm separated physically from this being that I'm very close to, we live together. And what another interesting remote viewing experience that I had one time, which was with a different being that also, I believe, works in the very close area with this other, when I talk about Ra'a, but I was able to see this being, and what I saw first was like an image of traveling in some type of a vehicle, and then it changed dramatically, and I saw this being was like almost like reclining and like at rest for a moment. And so I asked, which one, and what am I seeing? Are you traveling or are you resting? Or well, and the answer that I felt like I got was that I first saw what this being was thinking about at the time, and then I saw the actual like real time location, what was going on. So there was another time when I was actually went inside the body of my twin and saw the room and the workshop and everything, and it was amazing. It was much bigger than what I thought it was. And I asked, you know, I could see there were lots of these other beings and they're working on different things, and I asked, do they know that I'm in here? And the answer was, of course they do. And then can I do anything I want? Of course you can't. You know, it was just a viewing thing only.
Yeah, they gave you a limit right there. Wait a minute now.
Yeah.
You can look, but don't touch.
Don't operate the body yet. No.
Well, that's pretty astounding. And how long is this relationship with your twin, in terms of, like, because I kind of lost track.
5 years approximately.
5 years
yeah.
till now. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's now a part of your life. It's like
yeah.
It's every day or once a month. It's something it's like familiar and part of who you are.
Part of my reality. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah,
I wonder sometimes if I am not this person, you know, in a parallel reality, and I think that's partially true, but not in the way that I completely understand.
Yeah, I get that too, because I have friends that have they can experience themselves in this body, and then they can vision another self on a craft, and simultaneously envision another body on another planet. So here's the same consciousness in a human form on a craft and on another planet simultaneously. And I think that is closer to the reality of who we are.
Yeah.
Than just being incarnated as one being over and over again.
I think so. Yeah.
And so then you add in the mutability. So other beings, they can you know, they come together and go. I mean, there's definitely a location, an identity, and a separation, but there's this kind of interplay that where you can be completely connected and then separated and then connected again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Almost as one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I think that is. So it seems like this human form and we forget everything when we come here. This doesn't seem to be, the natural state at all. I don't think. I think that our spirits and everything, we can learn in this body to, transcend those limitations. But just to be in that, I am this body, I am me, I am this age, I'm I'm having this experience of sitting in this chair. I don't think that's what it, that's what it really is. That's a limited way of looking at things.
Well, if you're talking about suffering, I think that's the suffering and all the turmoils that humans go through, and I think there's a reason for all that. But that's just my conjecture at this point, that there's a reason that it seems to be so hard here, and there's a reason that beings that are not born on Earth and have a human body really do not get it. They do not get what's going on. The angels don't get it. They look at us like, why don't you just be more loving? I mean, that's the ETs are going, why they can't grasp that we get obsessed with depression or anxiety or judgments or all that kind of stuff that's so human. They don't get that at all, because they're first of all, their brains don't work like our brains do, and they don't experience suffering the way that we do. In other words, they're kind of like on a different level. Well, when they come into the human body, you hear about it, because these starseeds people, they're going, I can't believe I came here. I want to kill myself. I hate this earth. I mean, they're like really, really get a hard time being in a human body. But I think we're as important to the universe in our state of confusion and suffering, and our transformation into healing. I think we are as an important part of the universe as any other being or creature out there. These super high beings. I'm kind of jaded, because I look, if these guys are so super high, the Galactic Council and these guys, why didn't they fix all this stuff years ago? Well, they can't, because they don't have the whole, just like we don't have the whole. They got their picture really good, but they don't have the whole story. Nobody does.
It's all in process. Yeah.
Even our suffering is important. So what now? What's going on now?
Now I'm working on my art. I'm trying to move forward, trying to at some point this idea of reviving our old practice from a former lifetime became important, and this is something that I'm working on.
Old practice from a former lifetime?
Well, if I go into what I talk about my what I understand as a former incarnation of being in a somewhat amphibious form. And it's a very long story. That's what a lot of my paintings have to do with, that story in particular. I'm trying to tell it as much as I can. It's very important to me karmically as a person. But we lived I understand it, we weren't telepathic beings, but we were very, very similar to this reality, to Earth human in certain ways. In many ways, I believe the technology was more advanced, but we suffered from disconnection and insecurity, and were able to be lied to, and had very similar problems and such. At some point, my twin and I, in that lifetime, had been taken, like an abduction experience, from what I understand were higher dimensional beings that we called them like serpents or light beings. But they weren't physical, and we always knew that. They just appeared as changing bands of light. And what I believe the message that they had for us at that time, which had a lot to do with what I'm trying to do now, the understanding of living together, living in peace, developing the higher gifts, and being compassionate, forgiveness, the things that are necessary to really walk away from more the physical world and into the spirit world and advance in that understanding rather than being purely existing on a physical level. Reviving this thing and understanding this whole thing has been very, very weird for me because I really don't understand it, and it's very much in the process. As I understand these beings, we had songs and different practices that we would sing and almost like chanting, and this is something that I'm working on picking up again. But it's in process. I don't understand it. It's really, it's one of those one step at a time kind of thing. And what am I doing? You know. So I don't know where that's going to go. I'm working on several different blogs and things, and just going with the flow. I don't know. I don't know. You know.
Well, now it sounds like you're, you know, you're sprouted. You know, you grew up, and now you're blossoming. So blossoming is a whole different thing. That's where you explore art and creativity and manifestations, and but with compassion and connectedness and knowing. You know, then you create. You know, that's a great time to be in. You know, of you know, because at one point you weren't a painter, now you are a painter. You know, that's kind of like a learning curve, and
Yeah.
exciting and stuff. And some people are writers. And wow. How about your physical healing and stuff? Have you had any experiences with being healed or?
I believe at some point, this was 2 years ago, and I experienced a visit that I, for whatever reason, was not aware of, but my partner was aware of in the house, which was kind of an odd thing. And my understanding was that I was given something from my physical heart, some form of DNA or something, that I needed this, and for my physical heart. As far as I understand, that was a healing. I believe that. Everything has changed in a sense. Like, for example, all of my interests, my diet, absolutely everything changed. My sleeping habits from the point of awakening until now. So this has also been these changes, I think, have brought on a lot of physical healing in myself. And it was one of the first things I felt compelled to do was become a vegetarian and really, you know, begin picking up spiritual exercises. And these were things that when I talk about the year that I felt like I was with teachers for a solid year, these were all things that were impressed upon me as being very important. To take care of my physical health is like it is important suddenly for the first time. I feel I've got something to do and something to say. I'm not quite sure what exactly it is and how that's all going to go about, but obviously I need my physical body to do it. You know, it's so that became important.
Yeah, that goes along with what we mentioned earlier. Is when you go through your sort of the awakening or the realization, and the whole thing sinks in, then you see these things. Your diet changes, sometimes your weight changes, your hair, the way you cover yourself or your clothes, your jobs, all these kind of things change.
Yeah.
It's almost always for the better. There's more heart, there's more connectedness, there's more uh, joy or more excitement involved with it. So these, you know, I'm really glad to talk to you because you've had an incredible, extraordinary life, and there's nothing normal about it. That it falls right into the most commonly, you know, categories of you know, your awakening and remembering and having experiences and being given gifts, being given down. You just, all these things are just like a textbook. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll write down the list of the way it is, and that and it's for the better. Let me
Yeah,
make that perfectly clear. It's for the better, and you're more loving, more kind, more centered, more conscious person. This is for the better.
absolutely. It
Whatever
is.
this stuff is that they're giving you in Hollywood about the evil ETs and whatever,
Uh, uh, yeah,
that just doesn't play out. Over 80% of the people who have experiences, more than one, have a connected experience, their life changes for the better, radically for the better. More
yeah,
connection to Mother Earth, more connection to the animals. It is, it's just profound what's happening on the Earth. I mean, uh, if this is an alien invasion, come on. We need more of that because the way they're doing it is very, very phenomenal. They don't tell us what to do, none of that kind of stuff. They just keep giving you experiences of opening and connecting, and
yes,
then
yeah.
you transform automatically. Human beings transform automatically when you give them the right environment, the right psyche, connections, the right understandings about what reality is all about. They just blossom.
It's like evolution. It's like I believe that we're meant to. Everybody's meant to, have this opening experience like this. Yeah.
No, not to, and a lot of people get to this really high, like God stuff. Oh, seeing light and connecting with these light beings and stuff. This really high spiritual, sort of like crying. This was so much heart and experience that they've never had before.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
So, what else? I kind of feel like we should probably bring this to an end, unless there's something else you wanted to.
Well, that's most of my story at this point.
That's most of it. Yeah.
it's really to this point of ongoing this wonderful contact and communication and relationship. And again, I just like talking about people. I run into so many people that talk, this evil ET agenda thing that it's just so sad that people want to believe that. I think that human to every place, everywhere, everyone has always, there's always been contact. It's not that we're waiting for it to happen. It always has been. It's on the cave walls of, every continent, I imagine. It's part of who we are, and it's part of our future.
And it's part of the nature of the universe. The whole universe is connected.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel very much like these are parental towards us. They're not going to fix all of our problems, but they are working with us and guiding us from the inside. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend. Who is a writer, and he talks about this thing called planet mates. And now we have planet mates. It's like the dolphins, the whales, the birds, the four-legged people. But then there's also, all the human people. But then there's all these other beings that that are our planet mates now. They've evidently there's been thousands of years of them living underground. That's happening all over.
Yeah.
And they've been here watching us and letting us do our thing for a long time.
That's
Ultimately,
true.
it's better. How could it not be better to know that there's the vast majority of the universe is kind and loving and looking out for you? That's profound.
It is. It is. It's who we are, and hopefully who we become.
Yeah. I like that. We're very loving beings. All beings that I've ever met have been very loving. I even met a few demons, and it wasn't hard to trick them into being loving too. They just, like pretending to be tough guys. Everybody seems to be genuinely loving, kind beings. I mean, other people have different experiences. I don't know what that's all about, but my experience has been pretty on the positive side. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, and I'm so glad. I want to tell you one interesting little story, which is a little coincidence. Last night, when I was thinking, okay, we're going to have this interview tomorrow, and I was thinking, okay, I said to myself, I hope she just writes down on a piece of paper, sort of like a real general timeline, a couple of words and a date and location. And here we are. As soon as you got going, you said that you've actually done that. So perhaps we were connected last night.
Yeah. I was working on that last night.
So either you were sending it or I was sending it to you. I said, it doesn't have to be much, just a few words and a little, just to keep it organized. Well done. All right, so thank you so much, and I think I'll let you.
Thank you.
Really, really great, great story, great life, great message. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.